So I'm joined by José Papí from S3 Transportation, S3 Innovation and the STA, all three of your hats at once. You've been working on a very interesting report or a study over the last few months, which is the implications for the transport industry of a no-deal Brexit scenario. Now, having read that report myself, I was kind of frightened and very worried and concerned about halfway through that most of the things I'd read in that report hadn't ever been mentioned in the press or on TV or by politicians. There was this stuff in there that was really not simple stuff, logical stuff about the postal sector and the tourism sector and how a no-deal Brexit scenario is going to affect Airbnb, how it's going to affect EasyJet, how it's going to affect Amazon. No one's talked about this. Now this is in your report. So how did you go about writing the report in the first place? And can we talk about the research briefly? The fact that this report exists 2.5 years after we voted to leave the EU, Britain voted to leave the EU. That's the worrying thing, that this report is even needed.
Indeed, no, it has been a collective exercise that has gone around for around 5 months. It was commissioned by the European Parliament. And the fact is that we identified some very worrying clouds in the horizon, because sometimes the legislation is pretty clear. Sometimes the legislation is not so clear, but there are times in which the legislation is not clear at all. And then I think the study, it's very relevant, it's very timely, and I think it's important that the three sectors you mentioned, the transport one, tourism one, the postal one, become aware of what will be the consequences of the no-deal scenario, which by now is the most likely to happen, as you are aware of.
Yeah.
So I would like to highlight the fact that the report has been multidisciplinary in its conception. There have been lawyers, there have been economists, there have been engineers involved, and that we've had also a multinational team. This is very important to highlight it, with the support of both British specialists and also European specialists from here and there. I don't want to mention all the names now, but there have been at least, if I recall by heart, around 10 specialists involved. And well, I think the conclusions are very important, are very relevant at this time and age. And hopefully all H3B Connected readers and and your audience will become aware, thanks to this program, of the main conclusions of this study.
Yeah, but it is worrying. It doesn't matter which way you voted, whether you voted to leave the EU as a Britain or you voted to remain. The fact that 2.5 years after the vote, after the referendum, this report is telling me things that I had no idea. I've been following it closely through work and through my own interest. There's stuff in there that you just didn't imagine, hasn't been thought of.
Yeah.
So did you, when you were doing the research, when your team was doing the research, were you surprised at how much information there was out there that just hadn't been in the press at any point?
I totally concur with you. It is true, I mean, to be honest with you, that the study was commissioned only a few months ago. The study has an enormous size, you've seen it. It's almost 200 pages long. And it is true that there have been bits and pieces, of reflection about the topic here and there. You would find something emerging from public agencies. There will be another document there from a Chamber of Commerce, another document there from an international institution, lawyers, consultancies. But it is true that the effort of curating everything, into a single analysis is something that hadn't been done. And as you are rightly pointing out, it's kind of surprising that this has not been done before, given the relevance of the matters at stake. No, for instance, it is unsure that you residing in the south of London and myself residing in Brussels, that we will be able to send CD-ROM, no?
Yes, quite.
From your office to mine, and this might happen just in a few days' time from now.
Yeah.
So it's I think the conclusions in some parts are kind of scary. In other parts are more clear, and I think that they are also, we have to be honest, they are some and frank to your audience, there are also topics in which nothing in reality will happen.
Yeah.
But there are topics in which we should already, or well, not ourselves, but the public authorities, they should already be anticipating, the impact on the day-to-day lives of a citizen.
Well, it's day-to-day life. It's also the fact that if you look at, there was one section, I won't give the game away too much, but there's one of the paragraphs talks about how many airports around Europe British aircraft won't be able to land in, and how many countries will not be able to send aircraft direct to the UK. Now, I didn't think that was even part of Brexit. The fact that people won't be able to go on holiday to Bulgaria, you can't fly from Gatwick to Sofia. You'll have to go via Paris or via Frankfurt.
Yeah.
I didn't think that was Brexit. When the referendum was brought up 3 years ago nearly, that was not part of it. It was they talked about immigration and the National Health Service and all the other kinds of things and goods and all that kind of stuff. But it was never brought up that day-to-day stuff. As you said, buying stuff from Amazon. If you're in the UK and you order something from Amazon and they don't have it, they'll send it from Amazon Luxembourg. That won't happen anymore.
Yep.
Even this little day-to-day things. We know the big things. Leaving Europe is a huge task, technically and physically. But there's little things that are just kind of dragging it down, like the Irish border being a huge one. We won't go into that because that's a political minefield of itself. So what conclusions did you draw as the person responsible for collecting the report? What did you draw from it, other than that it's horrifyingly short of reality?
Well, I think the main conclusion would be that there are international agreements that simply will work well after Brexit, and that there are international agreements that will not work well at all, and there are international agreements where there's a grey area or a grey situation in which nobody understands today well what is going to happen. So basically we should divide reality in, we should have a threefold division of reality in the three sectors, and what the study has covered is this in detail. No, you have referred and highlighted some of the examples, the case studies, that we have in the report, and there's more to come. And if our audience wants to follow this in detail, I think they have to stay connected with H3B Connected.
Yes, thank you. Nice segue perfectly. So how can people who are watching this video who want to know more about this report, how can they get hold of a copy? How can they access it and find out for themselves?
Well, I guess there will be a hyperlink,
There will.
in your website, and that will be a downloadable report, PDF report, I guess. And very probably we could organize in the future, and this is an invitation I'm sending out to you. We could organize some roundtables that we could record, and where we could present, let's say, the conclusions of the study per sector or per topic or per issue. Or, well, this is something I'm sending out this glove to you.
Thank you. I'm returning the glove in kind.
Thank you. And then happily, I'll be glad to extend this and eventually even to invite other experts that have participated in the study in their fields of specialization, whether legal or economics or engineering, or trades or customs or whatever.
We'll let you know in that case. Jose, thanks for your time.
Thank you very much.
Please download the report, and it needs to be read. That's the worrying thing. 2.5 years later, that report needs to be read. But
Indeed.
Prepare to be surprised by some of the findings. I shouldn't have been surprised. None of that should have been a surprise to me. As someone living in the UK, I shouldn't have been surprised by any of that. But half of it was there was two, I won't spoil it, but there was two sections that I read that not that I didn't trust what was in it, I had to check somewhere else because I'd not read that before, and then I found, nope, that was also true, hidden well in the press, and there's a couple of government websites I found that was actually the case. That was clearly where you found it from.
Yeah.
But it's been very well hidden and very cleverly masked. But no more, you've unmasked it. The mystery is solved. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your invitation, Kevin.